In football, talent can take you far, but sometimes it's not enough. Injuries are the silent destroyer of dreams, and today we're diving into the stories of 12 players whose careers were tragically cut short by persistent injuries. If you love untold football stories like these, make sure to hit that subscribe button for more content. 12 Abu Dhabi, both Arsenal and France fans were so excited by Diaby's form during his first 6 months in North London. They all felt that they had the new Patrick Vieira on their hands. Unfortunately, Diaby never hit those heights. In injury time at the end of a 3-0 win at Sunderland in May 2006, the midfielder was on the receiving end of a horrendous and completely unnecessary challenge from Dan Smith. DB was left screaming on the pitch in agony, having suffered a severe ankle fracture that would require 3 operations and 8 months of rehabilitation. DB eventually returned in January 2007, but not at the same level, and ultimately spent more than half of his remaining years at Arsenal sidelined by injury, with former manager Arsene Wenger subsequently stating on beIN Sports that his compatriots' hopes of reaching the very pinnacle of the profession had been destroyed by an assassin's tackle. 11. Louis Saha. Sir Alex Ferguson essentially admitted that he signed Louis Saha from Fulham primarily because every time the Frenchman faced Manchester United, he gave us a doing. Of all the center forwards we employed, the legendary manager later wrote in his autobiography, when you talk about their talents, two-footed, good in the air, spring, speed, power, Saha would be one of the best. He posed a perpetual threat. Only when fully fit, though. Saha made a sensational start to his Old Trafford career, showing exactly why United had agreed to pay £12.4 million, $15.5 million for his services, by scoring 7 times in his first 14 appearances. However, then the injuries began to arrive, and Saha felt so bad about his regular spells on the sidelines that he used to text Ferguson apologizing for his absences. The Scot was sympathetic to Saha's plight, but eventually allowed Saha to join Everton in 2008. Ferguson explained, "The reason for selling him was that no matter how talented he was, I could never plan around him." On Jack Wilshire. On July 8, 2022, Jack Wilshire announced his retirement. A prodigious talent who had made his Arsenal debut at just 16 years of age, breaking a record previously held by Cesc Fabregas, had been forced to call time on his career while still only 30. Wilshire had been active in the game for more than a decade, but in truth, he had never fully recovered from the stress ankle fracture he had suffered during a preseason friendly in 2008-2011. After more than a year out of action, there were flashes of the player that Fabio Capello had described as the future of English football, but he continually struggled for form and fitness. He was eventually allowed to leave Arsenal for nothing in 2018, which would have been unthinkable when he was wowing the Emirates as a tenacious teenager with a wonderful range of passing. As Wilshire later lamented, "I didn't ever reach my full potential as a player, and everyone knows that. It's a difficult thing to accept." 9. Mario Götze. Götze might not have proved he was better than Lionel Messi in the 2014 World Cup final, as Germany boss Joachim Löw asked him to do, but he certainly upstaged him in Rio, netting the winning goal shortly after coming on as a substitute. At the time, the attacking midfielder was just 22 years of age. He appeared to have a stellar career ahead of him. However, things quickly went wrong for Götze. As he later admitted, he made a massive mistake by leaving Borussia Dortmund for Bayern Munich in the summer of 2013. Of even greater detriment to his development, though, was a rare and very difficult to detect metabolism disorder that was responsible for the recurring muscular problems that repeatedly restricted his game time. However, despite the belated diagnosis and a return to Dortmund, Götze, who is now plying his trade at Eintracht Frankfurt, has been unable to make the most of the talent that prompted Jurgen Klopp to describe him as the best young player he's ever coached. 8. Paul Pogba. On May 14, 2023, Paul Pogba made his first start since rejoining Juventus the previous summer. Sadly, he lasted just 23 minutes because of a thigh problem, the midfielder exiting the pitch with his jersey pulled over his head to try hide his tears. It was subsequently confirmed that a season that never really got going for Pogba was over, and there were growing concerns that the 30-year-old may never again be the player he was during his first spell in Turin. Indeed, it is worth pointing out that while there were obvious tactical reasons for the Frenchman flopping at previous club Manchester United, his time at Old Trafford was also punctuated by regular spells on the sidelines with a variety of muscular and ankle issues that undoubtedly hindered his attempts to prove himself the best player on the planet, which he undoubtedly had the ability to do, while his recent positive drugs test could yet cast a dark cloud over his career as a whole. But before that came to light, it was hard not to feel some degree of sympathy for Pogba, given the way in which injuries held him back. He may have won a World Cup, but he clearly could have achieved so much more. 7. Thiago Alcantara. Pep Guardiola requested the signing of just one player after taking over at Bayern Munich in 2013, Thiago Alcantara. Thiago or nothing, the Catalan told his Bavarian bosses. It's easy to understand why. Thiago was tremendously talented. However, he was also frustratingly fragile, which is why Jurgen Klopp admitted in 2022 that he didn't want to lavish too much praise on the Spain international, because when I do, something happens, namely an injury. The Champions League winner was without a shadow of a doubt one of the most gifted playmakers of his generation, a mesmeric midfielder capable of picking out a teammate with every type of pass from every possible position. Few players could strike a ball like Thiago, as so memorably underlined by his beautiful goal for Liverpool in a Champions League clash with Porto. However, in just one season during his career, did he manage to appear in at least 30 league games, a staggeringly sad statistic, given what he brought to each and every game he graced. It's something of a sporting tragedy, then, that he is now set to retire at the age of 33 after missing so many games through injury. 6. Marco Reus. Reus was named after Marco van Basten, which was a touching tribute to one of the game's greats, but also arguably an ominous omen, given the Dutchman's iconic career was cruelly cut short by injury. Thankfully, Reus managed to continue playing for his beloved Borussia Dortmund until the age of 35, meaning he's been luckier than most. But it's hard not to wonder about what might have been, as constant injury issues stopped the German from getting anywhere close to making the most of his incredible talent. The attacker has missed a succession of major international tournaments and seen club campaigns decimated by his depressing inability to stay fit. During one of his many spells on the sidelines, Reus admitted to GQ, "I would give away all the money to be healthy again, to be able to do my job, to do what I love, to play football. As top players, we earn a lot of money, but sometimes we pay a hefty price with our health." Reus is one of the best examples of that sad fact. 5. Adriano. In Adriano, Inter appeared to have found a ready-made successor to Ronaldo. Just like his fellow Brazilian, the Emperor was an imposing mix of physique and technique, a pure animal, as Zlatan Ibrahimovic enthused, who could score from every angle. Unfortunately, after a stunning start to life at San Siro, the striker's career, and indeed his life, went off the rails. Why? Injuries coupled with the devastating loss of his father. As the man himself so poignantly put it himself in a piece for the Players' Tribune, "What happened to Adriano? Brother, it's simple. I have a hole in my ankle and one in my soul." Poor Michael Owen. Owen was just 21 when he lifted the Ballon d'Or, and he fully expected to win at least one more. However, even at a point in his career when he looked perfectly poised to break every record in English football, the jet-heeled forward was petrified of running at full speed, having torn his hamstring during a game against Leeds 2 years previously. He later admitted that he would have preferred to have suffered a broken leg on that fateful night at Ellen Road, as the physical and mental scars would have been easier to overcome. "Once I pulled the hamstring for the first time, I was gone really," Owen told BT Sport. "I was quick, running in channels, beating people. That's who I was, compared to the last 6 or so years when I turned into the only thing I could, which was still a pretty decent forward in fairness, just not the thrilling teenage talent that illuminated the 1998 World Cup in France, with one of the greatest solo strikes the game has ever seen." 3. Eden Hazard. Eden Hazard to Real Madrid was a transfer a decade in the making, with longtime admirer Zinedine Zidane finally convincing Florentino Perez to sign the Belgium forward in 2018. Unfortunately, Hazard did not prove worth the wait, He turned up for preseason overweight, and things quickly went downhill from there. A player who had rarely been injured at Chelsea was suddenly plagued by problems, and Hazard admitted in 2021 that it was unlikely that he would ever again be the wing wizard that had torn up the Premier League after fracturing his ankle on 3 separate occasions. And so it proved, with the 32-year-old confirming his early retirement in October 2023. Hazard managed just 54 league games and 4 goals in 4 years at the Bernabeu, with his torrid spell in Spain perhaps best summed up by the fact that he never made a single appearance in a Clásico. The worst thing is that there was never much sympathy for Madrid's €120 million man, even among his teammates. While confirming that his contract had been terminated by mutual consent a year ahead of schedule, Los Blancos pointed out that Hazard had won 8 titles with the club. But truth be told, he played next to no role in any of them. Hazard could have gone down as one of the greatest signings in Reus history. He'll instead be remembered as one of their worst. To Ronaldo, a pair of Ballon d'Or, a European Golden Shoe, a World Cup winner's medal. Ronaldo had one hell of a career. But it could have been even better because he could have been even better, at least for a longer period of time. He was just 23 years of age when he suffered the first of 2 terrible knee injuries at Inter that effectively sidelined him for 3 seasons. Ronaldo recovered, but not fully. He still top-scored at Korea-Japan 2002, propelling Brazil to victory with 8 goals. But the player that received a standing ovation after scoring a hat-trick at Old Trafford in 2003 just wasn't the same phenomenon that had utterly tormented the great Alessandro Nesta in the 1998 UEFA Cup final. The former Lazio defender called it the worst experience of my life, and it was easy to understand why. With his pace, power, and ridiculous array of skills, that version of R9 was simply unstoppable, the most electrifying center forward of all time. For all he subsequently achieved then, it's still not hard to sometimes wonder what might have been had it not been for the knee injuries. In Marco van Basten. Marco van Basten is a legend of the game, the most complete number 9 in football history. He was both a great goal scorer and a scorer of great goals. Important ones too, as so perfectly illustrated by his logic-defying volley in Netherlands' European Championship final win over the Soviet Union in 1988. However, in August 1995, Van Basten announced his retirement from football because of a recurring ankle injury. He was still only 30 at the time, but hadn't played for 2 years, meaning the Dutch striker had essentially been robbed of his prime. As a tearful Fabio Capello said of a man who had helped AC Milan win 2 European Cups under Arrigo Sacchi, his early retirement was a mortal misfortune for him and for football.